off air? Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to give folks a minute to get in.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Okay. All right. Good morning, NextGen Nation. Welcome to our first breakout session, Networking with Purpose, Tips for Creating Meaningful Relationships. My name's Lauren Walker, and I'm Senior Staff Writer at GovLoop. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So let's get started. In government, relationships are everything. This session will teach you how to build authentic, strategic connections that support your career and your agency's goals. Learn how to network with intention, whether you're collaborating across departments or engaging with external partners. But first, a little housekeeping. Take a moment to look at the row of icons on your screen underneath the slides. They should appear, and if they don't, try moving your cursor to make them show up. There are additional resources to view or download, including this slide deck in the Resources tab. If you'd like to use closed captioning, look for the Show Captions icon. We hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message in the Q&A tab. My colleague Caitlin is standing by to help you out. You can use that same Q&A tab for any questions you may have for our speaker. Can drop them in whenever. You don't have to wait until the end. We also have an open chat where you can interact with the other folks attending the session. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. This is a conversation, and that's what makes it special. If you miss anything, don't worry. We'll email you a link tomorrow that will give you access to the entire event, the recordings of all the sessions, and all the slides and other resources. The link will go directly to your inbox. Okay, also, you can earn 1 CPE credit. Let me just move the slide. Oh, it's not going. Okay, you can earn 1 CPE credit for your participation in the session. To get the credit, you need to do 3 things. 1, stay and participate for the whole entire session. If you leave early, no credit. Take all the polls. There will be 4, and they will appear on your screen as a pop-up. Choose your response and click Submit to record your answer. And 3, fill out the post-event CPE evaluation to obtain your credit. You can find the CPE evaluation in the resource module on the console or at the Resource Center in the main environment. All CPEs will be mailed directly to you once we confirm that you've met all 3 requirements. So with that out of the way, let me introduce you to our expert speaker for this morning. Joining us is Victoria Zelefsky, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Arundel Economic Development Corporation. And with that, Victoria, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I am really excited about this topic. I have a lot of fun tips for you all, but also I have a lot of really interesting stories that I think will help you with this skill moving forward. So let's go ahead and get started. So a quick thing about me. So I am currently the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at the Arundel Economic Development Corporation. We are based in Annapolis, Maryland. I live about 6 miles away in Arnold, Maryland, so I'm very close to home. I've been in my current role for 1.5 years, and I'm so grateful because every day I get to support businesses in my own community. In fact, this week is Business Appreciation Week, and our team is going out and visiting 76 businesses across the county from top to bottom. So things like this make me stop and pause and get excited, but also we really have a great opportunity to go out and help others. Additionally, a couple things about me. I am on the Forbes Communications Councils. I have been since 2021. I'm a collaborating writer for Hotels.com and their Go Guides. And then I've been featured in Craft What's Cooking, Bon Appetit Management Company, and at Johns Hopkins University. When I was asked to speak today, I was genuinely excited about this topic. I think probably because my career path is a unique one, and I really wouldn't be where I am today without the people that I've met. A little about me, most people are surprised to learn that I am a classically trained opera singer. I studied vocal performance in college, so I went to the University of Northern Colorado and got my bachelor's and my master's at Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore, hence the Maryland, where I am today. Along the way, I became a travel enthusiast. I knew that Europe, especially Italy and Germany, if you're familiar with the opera world, offered a ton of opportunities for classical singers. So something I knew I needed to succeed to be a singer was to study foreign languages, and an opportunity came to me from a very unexpected place. At 19, I attended a leadership weekend for my sorority Alpha Phi in Indianapolis, and I met amazing women from across the nation. Somebody named Kirsten from Canada became really important in my life. We stayed in touch over our shared love of travel, and when she became an au pair for a family near Rome for a summer in Italy, they mentioned that they needed extra help at their restaurant on the beach, and she instantly thought of me. Of course, I said yes, and that job turned into an unforgettable summer. I improved my Italian, I learned how to make the perfect cappuccino, and I had my first real taste of it's not what you know, but who you know. Throughout my career, so many doors have really opened just by leaning into my network and saying yes whenever I could. I've learned that my biggest professional wins don't come from what I know, but really who I know, and how I've nurtured those relationships along the way. And recently, I attended DigimarCon, a conference in DC, and heard this amazing speaker, Sabrina Amjad, which some of you might be familiar with because she's presenting today. She was the opening keynote. I was so inspired by her. I added her on LinkedIn as she was speaking and introduced myself during the very next break. We've stayed in touch, built a great connection, become friends, and she eventually connected me to the NextGen team, which is how I was invited to speak today. So really this topic could not be more fitting. I have tons of stories like these, and I'm still amazed at how far a simple check-in or friendly conversation can go. So over the next 40 or so minutes, I'm excited to dive into this, the art of networking. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I do have a lot of practical tips, tricks, and tools to share because I know this can be a very intimidating topic. But I do want to remind all of you, today is not just about connecting business cards or LinkedIn connections. It's really learning about how to build relationships that are intentional, reciprocal, and authentic. So let's get started. On my agenda, I really wanted to try and focus on just a couple really specific sections so you have some ideas of what you could take back into your own practice. First, we'll talk about why relationships really matter in business. And then we'll kind of transition into how to create those intentional and meaningful relationships, and then how to keep them lasting, right? How to build those relationships that will last for a long time. And then I'll give you some tips and tricks. So creating your own intentional networking plan. And we'll end with some Q&A, but of course, if you have questions throughout, go ahead and drop them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer when I can. So let's get started with why relationships matter in business. So I like to start with quotes with each section. I think it's important to kind of bring it all home. And the first one I have for you today is, the richest people in the world look for and build networks. Everyone else looks for work. Given the current job climate, I thought this was really important to start here. I have a lot of friends with really incredible resumes and a lot of talent who are struggling to find work. The feedback I keep hearing is the same. It's harder now than it has been before, and hiring managers are flooded with applications. That's why this quote and the skill of networking in general feels more relevant than it has before. I think it's important to start about 5 years ago and think about how COVID-19 completely changed how we network. Everybody went virtual, people stopped going to events, people stopped handing out business cards, probably business cards stopped being printed for a while. But it also pushed us to be really creative. So thinking about how to go beyond your immediate circle really matters, and the skill and the art of doing that became important. You never know when you're going to need to tap into those connections that you've built. The power of strong relationships is really important. So relationships drive outcomes. No one succeeds in a silo, especially in government and in business. If you think about it, in the real world scenarios, quarterbacks have teams around them, authors have publishers, and PR partners. Collaboration is everything in everything that you do. Strong networks mean faster problem solving. It's like the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. How powerful is it, and lucrative in this case, to have the exact right person to call when you need to? We've all been there thinking through our network, our internal Rolodex, if you will, to find the one person who can help you move faster, forward faster. Credibility and influence come from relationships, and people are more likely to trust and advocate for those that they know and respect. I think it's important to think about that you can be the most capable person in the room with the right skills, the right background, and everything. But without those relationships, your ideas might not ever gain the traction that you expect them to or you want them to. Consistency, authenticity, and follow through build that trust, and trust will build your credibility. So having both is really important. Remember something, there was something someone told me once, and I think it stays true to this day and will for the rest of my life. Your reputation will travel faster than your resume. So how do you expand your impact? I like to break it down into two sections. It's important to think about networking beyond just who you see every day, who you bump into at every event that you continue to go to, every breakfast, every networking event. Both these internal and external networks are critical, and your network should extend beyond that org chart. So internal networking often gets overlooked, but it's one of the best ways to collaborate and move ideas forward, especially when you have a massive team. Cross-department connections can give you new perspectives and valuable context you might not get otherwise. And it also gives you a really cool and unique perspective that somebody from over there that you just happen to see at lunch might have insight into something that you need to help push you forward. External networking is what we think of as traditional networking through trade shows, events, community meetups, happy hours, things like that. And if you're strategic about where you show up and how you spend your time, these relationships can really expand your impact. Think of business groups, associations, nonprofits, and even neighbors, friends, people you run into at the coffee shop often. Your network is everywhere. All right, so next we're going to hop up with our very first poll. So I would like for you to think of one person who opened a door for you. How did that relationship begin? Through work or a project collaboration, at a networking event or conference, through a mutual connection or introduction, or just organically, somebody you know and you just clicked over time. As you answer, I want you to think back on that relationship that you've reflected on. How did it start? And I think it's important to remember that we often think networking has to be very formal, but most meaningful relationships start in simple, unexpected ways. So, Lauren, are there any questions?
Okay, we haven't gotten any questions yet, but
Great.
we will leave the poll up for about a minute. I have a question, which is, what's the weirdest place you ever made a networking connection?
The weirdest place. Honestly, I think it's so funny because it's not necessarily weird. It's just something I wouldn't expect, but probably like at the gym or at yoga or something, because you're not going there to meet people. You're not going there to, like, that's not the headspace. And so I've definitely met people while I was in a workout class that I'm like, oh, I've seen you at a work event, and then we've connected and I've been able to shoot an email and ask a question. So that I remember being really surprised by that a few times.
Okay, we do have a question now, which is how often or how effective are network events, like formal network events?
I honestly think you get what you give. And so I every time I go to a networking event, even to this day, I challenge myself with making at least one real connection. I mean, it can be overwhelming. There can be 200 people there. And you're just kind of, you feel like a small portion of this. And so I like to go at least once a quarter, if not once a month. I like to challenge myself to get out there, but in the nature of my job, it's important that I do that. So when I go with the intention of finding one person that I will connect with and make a solid effort to stay involved in their life and part of their circle.
That's cool. Um, yeah, so let's look at our responses.
Oh, this is really cool. So it's interesting, right? Because I had said traditional networking is through these events or conferences, and we only have 6% of respondents saying that that was how they met someone who opened a door for you. So I think through work or project collaboration and organically were the top choices, and mutual connection really wasn't that far behind. So I think it's important that we start here, because now everybody can kind of see it's not like even your own opportunities have really come from different places, and not just the here's my business card, what can you do for me, traditional networking approach. All right, very cool. So moving forward into my next section here, which is creating those relationships that are intentional and meaningful. So again, starting with a quote. Ooh. Got it. Your network is your net worth. I'm sure you've all heard this before, but think about it. How many times have you been able to get something done faster because you knew who to call, right? Like I had a project and I'm trying to remember exactly what that statistic was that somebody mentioned in a meeting. Like I'll know who to call to help me get there, right? When you're under immense pressure at work, do you have someone you can call who always picks up and offers to help? Those relationships are everything. That's what we call relationship equity. I've heard that recently and it really stuck with me. Honestly, relationship equity can be just as valuable, if not more so, than technical skills. All right, so on to our next poll. I did double us up here. When you think about a mentorship in your career, I want you to think about which statement feels the most true for you. So you prefer traditional mentor-mentee relationships with clear guidance, structure, meetings, check-ins, things like that. You learn best through peer relationships, collaboration around the office, if you're virtual, collaboration through Teams, or however you talk to people. You found value in both having formal mentors and informal connections, so you can kind of see the benefits to both. And the last one I wanted to add was, I haven't had a mentor yet, but I'm open to building meaningful relationships. As you think about this, I want you to think about if you've had a mentorship, was it structured and formal, or was it more organic and peer-based? Because that will really set us up for the next section here.
Okay, again, we're going to leave this up for about a minute. And I have a question now, which is, would you agree that we should have a personal statement for networking?
A personal statement. Can you expand on that, or was that something in the chat?
It is something in the chat, but I'm thinking they mean sort of like an elevator pitch.
Okay. Yes. Well, interesting, because I used the term elevator pitch later on in the slide deck. I think it's important for yourself to have an elevator pitch because it's your messaging, it's your brand, it's who you are, right? So you should be able to speak to that kind of quickly. You should get to the point of what you love, who you are, what you could do. But I don't think that necessarily has to be part of networking. I mean, especially because what I'm trying to say is networking is about creating those really organic and meaningful relationships. So if you just come across with an elevator pitch, it might not stick or land the way that it would if you come and you come with genuine interest and talk about something you love in your world and something that you're interested in and something that you're passionate about, and finding those mutual topics of conversation. So I think that it has a place, and I think that it's important that you can speak to who you are and what you do. But it's also nice to be able to just build that meaningful connection. So having both is a great way to expand your toolkit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, time for the answers.
There we go. Awesome. Okay. So I love that the very top answer here is finding value in both formal mentors and informal connections. I'm just going to leave it there because that completely sets us up for what I'm about to talk about. Perfect. Okay. So the power of having a mentor. I think it's important to lay the foundation. Obviously, everybody has found value in both, or most of you have. I think that having mentorships or having a mentor-mentee relationship can be very powerful. It always has been, and the impact of a good mentor can completely change the trajectory of your career. It wasn't hard for me to find some impressive stats that back that up. I went to Forbes and Harvard Business Review, and so here are some of the stats here. 84% of Fortune 500 companies have mentoring programs in place. And out of that, 75% of executives credit their success to having mentors. And this one really stuck with me. This is the Harvard Business Review one. 90% of employees that were polled who have a career mentor say that they're happy at work. So it's like kind of having somebody in your court. It's really nice to see that if you feel like somebody has your back, somebody you can like go to and you can bounce ideas off of, you're happier and more fulfilled in work. So there is value beyond that old school model. I think that even the best systems have to evolve to stay relevant. And while traditional mentorships are still valuable, some of you said that, and even those statistics continue to say that, modern professional growth often comes from peer connections and intentional relationships. There's a lot of value in looking beyond that old school model and finding growth through shared experiences and collaboration, like I said. So I think one of the reasons why it's considered an old school model is because they rely on hierarchy a lot of the time rather than having mutual growth opportunities, right? So it's somebody higher than you in your field, and so they just kind of talk top down. A single perspective like that, while it can be very valuable, that person might be able to give you some tools, some insights that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get yourself. Creating that network of inspiring people can be even more powerful for you. So I want to think about it as like a question. It's no longer, why should I have a mentor? Why should I put in the time and the effort to find one, to work with one, to set aside time in my calendar? But instead, how can I capture the benefits of mentorship without just being limited by these old school models or this inflexible approach of the quarterly check-ins and the spreadsheets and things like that? So that's where you need to start getting intentional. So create your circle with purpose. So think outside of the box when it comes to mentors and meaningful connections. The most impactful people in your life don't necessarily have to be those CEOs or those vice presidents in your field. They don't necessarily have to be older than you or more accomplished on paper. They can be anybody, right? They can be peers. They can be partner organizations. They can be neighbors and friends. They can be somebody else on the PTO. They can be experts in your field. The key is really about balance and being intentional about expanding your network and tapping into all of those different places, not just focusing on one. You never know when when your path will cross with somebody. I mean, people change jobs, people move, things happen. You're going to join a new conference. And you might say, oh, I remember you from 10 years ago. It's why it's important to continue that conversation. So while this old school model really relies on hierarchy rather than mutual growth, a modern approach to mentorship is creating meaningful relationships rather than focusing on collecting those business cards, like I said. And I think it's important to remember that you don't want to let fear stop you from being friendly. Don't be afraid to say hi. Those relationships can be worth their weight in gold, especially as you nurture them over time. So that brings me to the 12 by 12 approach, which is something that has really led me in my life. And this is where I want to share a story with you. At 25, I was done with grad school. I had just lived and worked in Europe for a year, and I came back home to America. I was broke. I was ambitious. I was working at a music school. And I moved from coordinator to assistant manager in 4 months. And I was just completely stuck. I was super eager to build an impactful career. So my mom, who is the CEO of a nutrition company, she invited me to join her, go with her to work at a booth at the National Restaurant Show in Chicago. So that was fun. I was like, oh, of course I'll go do that. Let me hop on a plane. Let me go meet all of these people, go see all of these things. And while I was there, we would go to lots of different networking events. And I met one of her friends, a woman who owned a lot of frozen yogurt shops. And I was really impressed by her. So I just said, hey, how did you become so successful? Just that one question, right? And her advice has stuck with me and become some of the best advice I've ever been given. Her advice was this: identify people who inspire you, people that you happen to know, you might not know them well. Invite them to coffee or lunch once a month. It was simple, but so powerful. She called it her 12 by 12 method. It was 12 meetings a year. And to her, she said it shows hunger and determination, especially when you're early on in your career. I'll take it even a step further and say it takes guts, right? Because inviting somebody to a meeting that you don't really know, but you're impressed by, it can be really intimidating. But like I said, I was stuck. So I figured, why not try? I was in a job I was really good at, but I didn't love. So the day after I got home from the conference, I emailed another local CEO that I met there, and a week later took her to lunch. By the end of that lunch, I had a new job in marketing. It was my very first break. Um, so I've used this method ever since, even when I've grown in my career. And the example I've pictured here is from a conference in New York City I attended. I was 7 months pregnant. I was super uncomfortable. And the morning of the conference, I was about to get on the train in Baltimore, and my boss was going to join me, and she said, "Sorry, my kiddo is sick. I can't go." And she said, "If you want to bail, I understand." I said, "Look, I'm going to go alone." I read the program. There's this one speaker there who lives near us. She's the senior vice president of corporate communications at Bizzuto. She's incredible. I want to meet her. So I went. I made it a point to go. And I walked, as soon as I heard her speak, I knew she was exactly who I wanted to meet. So I added her on LinkedIn, similar to what I did with Sabrina, and I waddled up to her, literally waddled, and invited her to do a virtual coffee with me when we got home. This woman is now a really good friend of mine, and I would consider her my mentor. I still meet with her regularly. We check in, we text, we send updates on our lives, on our careers to each other. And the final picture on the right was from 3 months ago in Bethesda. So I will say that this approach has been really important for me. It gives me an action item. It gives me something to do. And not every meeting that I've had has led to something major, but every single one has taught me something. It's either taught me I need to change what I say, it's taught me I need to be more prepared, it's taught me that maybe this person wasn't as amazing as I thought they were, but it's taught me something. And that practice is really what has kept my network strong. So that leads me to, how do you build these relationships that last? So those meaningful relationships, they can happen. And then what, right? Now what do you do? So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This I've heard many times throughout my life. And in this context, I think it's really worth expanding on. It's not just about internal teams moving together towards a goal. It's about how you move forward with others in your network, not just in your team. One thing I learned through my 12 by 12 approach is that it's how you show up. Whenever I invited someone to coffee or lunch, the best conversations that I had happened when I came in with curiosity, right? Instead of saying, "Can you help me with this?" Or "I really need to get on a board. I really need to do this." I'd ask questions like, "I'd love to hear how you approach XYZ." Or, "What was something that inspired you in career? How did you get here? What did you learn along the way?" I won't say that I didn't say, "I really need." I definitely did a few times, but it didn't end the same way. Those kind of connections, when I came in with that curiosity and that interest, is really what created connection. I learned things about these people that I would have never learned. I was able to take away tactical skills and also kind of build that friendship. And that's really, really where the value of networking lives. So be curious, not transactional. Approach people with curiosity and genuine interest. Try not to start off by thinking, what can this person do for me? How can they help me move forward in my career? And instead ask about, what do they do? What do you love to do? What do you do for fun? What do you do in your spare time? What do you like at your job? And listen actively. Find that common ground. That'll help you with your conversations. So here's where I'm coming back to that question, and remember people remember how you make them feel, not your elevator pitch. So let's hop into a poll here.
There we go.
Perfect. When you think about 3 people you'd like to connect with this year, and I know we're coming up on the end of the year, so maybe think about it within the next year from now. What best describes your reason for choosing those people? Do you want to learn from their expertise or experience? Do you want to collaborate on something? Is there a project you're interested in doing? Do you want to just expand your network, have inspiring people around you? Or do you want to offer help or be a mentor or support? I think as you think about these people you want to connect with, think, why them? What could you learn from them? I think there's no right or wrong answer. It's just more a pulse check that kind of helps you figure out what drives your connections.
Okay, again, we will leave this up for about a minute. And we have a question. Do you have any tips on building your internal network at work organically when you work at a different location than most of the people on your team? I would
Oh,
imagine this also is good for people who are working entirely remote.
mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. So this is something I try to do every time I have a new job or somebody joins. I will schedule a virtual coffee chat and actually 30 minutes. Like I don't think you want to discount how important those conversations can be by saying, hey, let's do 10 quick minutes. Ask people to get on their calendar, be intentional about getting to know them. Don't have an agenda of here's what I need from you, or here's how we're going to work together. I think it's important to introduce yourself, talk about what you do in your role, and then open the floor. Say, hey, tell me about you. Where do you live? What brought you here? What did you do before? Um, of course, you can use the time to talk about how you think you will collaborate together, especially because somebody brand new or you being brand new might not know. But I did that when I started this job with almost everybody. I either scheduled time to meet in person at the office, or I scheduled time for us to just hop on a quick Teams call. And if you take the initiative to do that, I think people are really impressed by that. And it gives you a chance to learn more about them beyond their email signature.
Okay, here are the answers.
Awesome. So I was expecting this to learn from their experience and expertise is still the number one reason why people like to expand their network and connect with people. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Being inspired by others is really similar to the first one. So for those two to be the top two is awesome. But yeah, I think that the best way for everyone to do that is to just focus on making those intentional, lasting relationships. And then these three people could be a part of your network forever. Awesome.
I just want to add that somebody in the chat says virtual coffee is genius. Not another
Oh,
meeting, but a no
good.
pressure chat.
No pressure. Hey, and if it's a virtual, and back to my 12 by 12 approach, if it does, doesn't necessarily have to be somebody on your team. There have been times where I've invited someone to coffee and we haven't been able to do it, and I'll send them a Starbucks $10 gift card and I'll virtually send it to them as kind of a thanks for meeting with me. You don't have to do that with all the people in your team, but hey, it's a nice gesture.
Okay.
Awesome. So intentional versus organic, right? When I thought about the best way to really build your network, the first thing that came to mind to me was that every connection starts with something super simple. Hi, right? An introduction. So I've boiled it down to a few rules of thumb and kind of to show that power of just saying hi. On the right-hand side, you'll see me at the top with my team, Grayson and Steve, that I work with every single day. And Sabrina, we took this photo minutes after meeting her. I was shocked. She was so cool, so down to earth. And then the bottom one is at a women's networking event that I helped run when I worked for a real estate development firm that owned Keller Williams Capital Properties. So it was an operating partner, and there were over 1,000 agents. So we had this idea to bring some women together, and look who showed up, right? So a few easy rules of thumb for saying hi, right? First, just be open to conversation in general, anytime, anywhere. Like I said, yoga, right? At the grocery store. Um, don't overthink it. I think a simple hi can open those unexpected doors that you might not have seen coming. Some of the best connections happen when you least expect them, and I think people here can all attest to that. And another thing that I think is really important to think about is don't let fear or assumptions stop you from engaging. It shouldn't hold you back. Step outside of your comfort zone. You don't know what you don't know. I think just saying hi and being approachable and friendly can kind of take away some of that fear, because that's really where the growth happens. So ditch those stereotypes. Approach people with genuine interest and curiosity. Stay curious throughout your career and throughout every time you go to an event. And have that same mentality when you're on a Zoom call with somebody or when you're doing those virtual coffee chats. I think that if you approach it with friendliness and how can I really get to know this person, you'll be really surprised how just that mind shift, you can walk away with so much more. So connection through common goals. this is just like such a simple thing to think about, but actually kind of complex, right? So you've got your goals and their goals, and it seems very siloed. But there will be some kind of an overlapping shared mission, especially if they're somebody in your professional network. The best relationships I've found really can often grow from having that common goal or mission. Like we do completely different things, but we both really believe that women empowerment is important in business, right? Or we both want to help local entrepreneurs or something like that. It could be that simple. But when you align that purpose, when you learn what that common goal is, you can trust, like trust will follow that. And trust can be a huge game changer when it comes to the strength and impact of your network and of your relationships in general. So now that we've talked about the importance of building those genuine relationships and kind of keeping them over time, let's talk about how to keep them strong over time, not just existing, right? So first, I want to say lead with generosity. So you don't have to be the super connector, like I'm going to connect this person to this person and oh, you should know this person. Like you don't have, that's not how you can add value to everyone. And you might not even be really good at that or comfortable doing that. So people remember how you make them feel. I've said it before. Be genuine, be kind, be thoughtful, celebrate each other's wins, make those introductions when they make sense, share insights when you think that you have something to share. Um, I think reciprocity builds influence organically and leave if you're being thoughtful, it can have a lasting impression that really doesn't cost you anything. And second, there's power in showing up, and that's not just in business, that's in life. And so I think it's an important skill to bring over into this networking process. Um, I don't just mean physically showing up. I mean follow up after you meet someone. When I was telling you earlier, when I go to a networking event, I try and meet one person. I do this with that one person. I will follow up after I meet them and I'll just send them a quick note or message. Hey, it was so great to meet you at XYZ. I'm super impressed with what you do. Would love to stay connected. Let's schedule a time to chat, or I'm looking forward to seeing you at this next event. Whatever it might be, right? So follow up, comment on their social media posts. I mean, think about it. Who doesn't love getting a notification? Someone liked my content, someone shared my content. It's so easy for you to do. And you don't just have to go to the internet to write bad reviews, right? You can go to celebrate your friends or to say, hey, that's really cool you're doing that event. Or I'm excited that your company is doing this. Good for you. Thanks for sharing. Those small, consistent gestures build up over time and they create lasting impressions. You're like, ah, Victoria's a champion of me. She thinks of me. That's really nice. Like that, you want people to remember how you made them feel. So keep that communication alive. One of the people that I work with here is really good about that. He does a lot of, hey, I saw this and I thought of you, or at least really small gestures. And I think I like to do that in my personal relationships. And so I'm challenging myself to do that more professionally. The bottom line really is this, right? Generosity will start your connection and consistency will keep it alive. All right, our final section of the day. So creating your own intentional networking plan. Everyone should hopefully know who Bill Nye is, and if you don't, then you're younger than me, but every person you meet knows something you don't. So stay open and humble. It's so simple, right? This quote is so simple, but it's so easy to forget. You really don't know what people know, who they know, or how they might be able to help you, or you can help them. Staying open and humble really pays off. And to show how powerful small moments can be, I have a really quick story for you that's really close to my heart. It's something I'm really proud of. When I was 21, I was waiting tables in Baltimore's Little Italy at a restaurant called Amici's. I was paying my way through grad school by myself, so that was my side hustle to do that. As an opera singer, I bet you can imagine working in a restaurant. I was the prized birthday singer, right? So anytime anyone had a birthday, didn't matter what Victoria was doing, I had to drop that and I had to go sing. Um, One night, and all the restaurant people here will know this term, I was in the weeds. Like I was totally over my head. I had tons of tables, things were coming out wrong from the kitchen. But my boss came to me and said, hey, there's a little girl in this section. She's turning 5, and I want you to like kill it. Go sing. And so I dropped what I was doing. I serenaded that sweet little girl with the best happy birthday that I could muster at the time. And I went right back to what I was doing, checking on my tables, thought nothing of it. At the end of my shift, My boss pulled me aside. I was rolling silverware, and she said, "Hey, just want to let you know my cousin who works for the Baltimore Orioles was sitting in the table next to this little girl. They happen to need a national anthem singer for the next day's game." She said, "Are you interested?" So of course I said yes. And that one small moment at Amici's, I'm there in the bottom left-hand side with my friends at the time, turned into something incredible. And I sang the national anthem at Camden Yards every year for a decade, from 2014 to 2024. I think I did it 16 different times. A couple times I did twice in a year. Sometimes I did God Bless America, so the seventh inning stretch. This has really been one of the most meaningful traditions of my life. I had no idea that my boss's cousin worked for the Orioles. I had no idea they were sitting there. It didn't even dawn on me that this could be an opportunity. And so the bottom right is really special for me. I was able to bring my son, Charlie, on the field at, I think he was 2 months old the first time, and then pictured here, he was just over a year. So it's been a connection that I'll remember forever. And it just really goes to show you never know who's listening. So maybe that, back to your initial question, Lauren, is you never know who's there. It could be the weirdest place I ever met someone was while I was singing happy birthday to a 5-year-old. But again, you just don't know. Awesome. So that brings me to how to build your network with purpose. Building a network with intention can feel super overwhelming, especially if you haven't done it before. I like to think of it with this simple visual. So picture this networking map. You've got 3 layers, right? You have your inner circle, the people the closest to you. Those are your mentors. Those are your champions. That's my mentor who I call and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm totally stuck. I'm frustrated. Help me. You've got your middle circle, so your peers, your collaborators, the people you do those Teams chats with. Like those are the ones who you keep close, but they're not necessarily the first call. And then the outer circle, the aspirational connections, the CEOs that you want to be that CEO one day, the ones that you listen to speak, Mel Robbins, right? Like those are the people you want to connect with. I think each of these plays a different but equally important role. And the key here is to let your network evolve. So every so often, every quarter, I would suggest that you take a moment to actually write these names down, right? Write down who's in your inner circle, your middle circle, your outer circle, and see and try and figure out where's off balance. Do you have 1,000 people in your inner circle and 4 in your outer circle? Who do you want to learn from? Who can learn from you and grow and put your energy into building the one that should get bigger? And here's some tactical skills. So how do you turn this into a habit, right? You can walk away from this and say, I feel so inspired. I'm going to this awesome event next week. I'm going to make a friend. And then in a year, you're like, that's the only friend I made this year, right? So you want to turn this into a habit. It's so powerful, right? So think about how often you intentionally network every single month. This is such a valuable skill, but it's super easy to let slip, especially when your to-do list just grows and grows and grows, and we all have been there. I encourage you to try to committing to at least one of these intentional actions. If you can be an overachiever, do it all, right? But hone in on one that you feel like I can actually really do this. Networking doesn't have to feel forced. I think that's the most important takeaway from this is start with curiosity, meet somebody where they are, be consistent, find your shared values. And so here's a couple of things that helped me stay consistent. This is really what I do. So schedule a 30-minute connection block each month. Actually put it on your calendar. 30 minutes that you can give, even if it's over a lunch break. And you have your sandwich and you've got your computer and your phone. Think about different ways that I've told you you can connect with people. So schedule those coffee chats, like people's social media posts. Just scroll through LinkedIn and be like, I'm gonna like 10 things today, right? Attend one new event each quarter. So I go to a lot of the same types of events and we'll see a lot of the same types of people. And when somebody on my team came to me and said, hey, I want to go to this marketing conference in DC, I had never even heard of it. I was like, that sounds great. Let's do it. Let's go out. Let's get out of our comfort zone. And so we attended that, and that's how I met Sabrina. Think about that. Try and come up with ways that you can do that. Like I said, during that connection block, you can engage with people on LinkedIn. You try engaging with 3 new people, expand that circle, add people that you know you have 10 mutual connections. And then this is a really big one. Follow up within 48 hours of meeting someone. If you have a goal of 48 hours, it's easier to remember to do it. So creating a simple tracker to keep you accountable. So with all of these checklists, add things to this, take things away, whatever works for you. But keep that tracker somewhere that you can keep it handy. Notes apps work really cool. Sticky notes next to your computer, whatever works. I'm currently potty training, so you've got the, I have the map and you can do the little stars if you want. He loves it when he gets a star, right? So why not give yourself one? There's whatever tracker works for you. I think that's important. Okay, let's go back to our poll here. And it's the final poll of the day. And it's one I really want you to think about. What's the biggest thing that tends to stop you from putting yourself out there to network? So why don't you do it? Do you say, oh, I have no time, my to-do list is super long. You say, I'm not really good at small talk. I stick to the people I know. You say, I don't actually know where to start. This is a lot coming at me. Where do I start? Or is it something else entirely?
Okay, once again, we will leave the poll up for a minute. And I have a question for you from one of the attendees. Asks, with life changes, how do you manage a growing networking ecosystem?
Well, that's really interesting. Life happens. We've all been there. Something for me that changed in my life was I went from working 70 hours a week to having a baby. And that was a huge life change, right? And I was exhausted. I no longer could sustain the job that I was in because it took so much of my time and energy. And so I had to pivot. I had to find something that would help me with that balance. And I was really afraid of that, right? And so there were two things that I did. One was I got really intentional with making mom friends. And that sounds, it's easier said than done. I didn't even know where to look. Most of my friends were not having babies at that time. So I had to find networks, Facebook groups with other moms that lived near me. A mom's club in Severna Park. I'll shout it out here. That has been huge for me. I went to events with them and I would never realize that there were mom events. So life events like that, you can move to a new place and you have to start totally from scratch. Like I had to challenge myself to think outside of the box of my typical networking opportunities. And then another thing was doing those coffee chats when I did move, when my job changed. At the very beginning, within the first week, I knew I was trying to learn about the company, but I wanted to learn about my new people, my new peers. And so that was something that I really instituted about 3 jobs ago when I worked at Johns Hopkins, because we had offices all over the place and I didn't see these people every day. So both of those were big changes for me, and it made me have to get intentional and uncomfortable, but they were very helpful.
That's great. I want to encourage people to put in some questions. There will be time, I think, for Q&A at the end. So get your questions in that tab.
Awesome. Okay, so we're all over the place here. Don't have time. I don't know where to start, and I'm not good at small talk. I think don't discount that. Some people don't like to do that. Don't like to just chat with people they don't know. So I am a prepared person and I like to think about what do you do, right? So thank you for sharing those insights. It's really helpful to see everyone's navigating similar challenges. Not one stood out more than the other. But the key takeaway is that each of these barriers can be turned into small intentional actions. So it's just really a slight shift, right? So if you don't have time, try and change your mindset to I can make small, meaningful moments count, right? Go to the networking event or the event that you're going to in general 10 minutes early. Stay 10 minutes late, like push a meeting back. And then take that 10 minutes and say, that's when I'm going to meet someone, right? If you're there when it starts and leave when it ends, when are you giving yourself the time? I'm not good at small talk. I can focus on genuine conversations. What are the people that you jive with most at work? What roles do they play? Try and find people with similar job titles. Maybe you'll be able to find that common ground there. And I don't know where to start. Just start with just one person, one connection. If you're sitting at a table at a breakfast, who's to your right, who's to your left? You don't even have to go and find them. They're there. Try not to sit next to your best friend, right? But start with one. That's the easiest place to start. Awesome. So that brings me to my key takeaways. And if I can leave you with any advice, it's really this. Networking with purpose isn't about building your contact list and making it super long. And so you can say, hey, look, I've got 5,000 people in my network. It's about building community. And with COVID-19, everybody got stuck at home. So your community didn't just become who you live around, it became who you knew online. So expand your network and make them meaningful. Make your relationships as meaningful as you can. It takes time. You don't have to check in with every single person on your list every single month. Those like scrolling on LinkedIn every couple days and saying, oh, I forgot about that person can be a great way to keep that relationship strong. So be curious, be consistent, be kind, and build with purpose. Meaningful connections will last, and you never know when you're going to be able to tap into them. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. I will drop my LinkedIn here in the chat. So if anybody wants to connect with me, feel free. But yeah, Lauren, is there?
Well, there's a question that's sort of prompted a discussion in the chat. That is how, really what you've addressed all day today. How do you get over the fear of approaching someone that you've never met?
Well, I don't know if it will ever get easier if you don't do it. So you kind of just have to challenge yourself. And I think if you maybe some people having an elevator pitch or a today, this is what's on my heart, this is what I care about, this is what I'm proud of, like that can be top of mind for you. So when you have that, when you go and you make that introduction to someone, you're ready with a this is something I'm excited about. Or this is really interesting. I've been watching, I don't know if anyone else is watching NextGen Chef on Netflix. But there's this young guy, Sydney. He's 21. He's hilarious. And he is a private chef for the New York Jets. And one of the very first episodes, sorry, I'll spoil it a little for you. He explained how he got that job, right? Like, what 21-year-old is a private chef for the New York Jets? He said, I really wanted to be. So I direct messaged every single person on the team or that I could find that worked for them until I got the job. And so who like you just copy and pasted the same thing to all these people and now he's got the job. So I think it's kind of like maybe if you don't like walking up to someone, but you feel confident doing that, like direct messaging people or, hey, I see you're going to attend the same thing as me next week. I'd love to meet you. Then when you walk up, you say, oh, thanks for answering my message. So great to meet you in person. That takes out the, hi, I'm Victoria. So there's just different ways to do it.
I tend to be an introvert, and I have to say that as bad as COVID is, being able to do more things online with words rather than with physical presence has been really helpful to me. So
Mm.
I can see the point of that. Um, okay, someone here has said that initiating a conversation and networking um, is something that you have to do rather than waiting for others to go first. And again, I just sort of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, the early bird gets the worm. Like if you want to build this, if you feel confident in the fact that having a strong network will help you, then you just have to challenge yourself. I saw somebody write, "Do it scared," and I really like that. Not that anyone likes being scared, but I think that's why I tried to weave in ideas of like it doesn't have to be at this intimidating conference. Everyone's wearing their best thing and they're busy and they're hustling. It could just be like the other mom in the drop-off line who happens to be the CTO of XYZ and you just don't know. And so I think it's really like I love that. Do it scared and prepare yourself. Like go with your this is what I want to talk about today. Or if you get an attendee list for a conference that you're going to, research who's going. Try and figure out who you might want to meet. If you like being prepared, then prepare yourself.
Um, what is the best way to track connections? You said, have a sheet and make time for the intentional follow-up. Person says they tend to meet people and then forget to follow up, and then the connection falls through the cracks. How do you keep it live?
Yeah, so I've got two different ways that I do that. I get business cards a lot, which is hilarious that I keep saying don't worry about it, but I do keep them and I have a coffee mug on my desk. And every time I get a new business card, I put them in my coffee mug. And then once a month, I'll just pull out all of those and try and figure out, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a long time. So that's like my physical way of doing it. And another is in my notes app on my cell phone because I have a Mac too, so I can pull it up there. I'll just write people's names down, right? So if I met Sabrina, I wrote her name down, and even just her first and last name, because if I don't have time or I didn't know where she worked. And so I've got a place physically to go and look for it. And then during that 30-minute connection block is when I'm physically bringing those cards out or scrolling through that list. Um, some people get more organized. They have spreadsheets with those three different sections or with everything from their cell phone numbers and their titles to their LinkedIn profiles linked right there. However your brain works, do that. But you have to have a place, right? Because you're not going to remember. And these are very quick conversations. So wherever you can write it or keep it, where you'll be able to go back to it and then be intentional about going back to it.
Okay, I want to encourage anybody who has another question to drop it in either the chat or the Q&A. We are coming up
Awesome.
shortly to time, but there is still room for another question or two if you've got them.
I will also say I'm loving reading this now. I've been ignoring the Q&A, but building community is key. Do it scared. Most introverts are the best presenters. All of these are awesome, and I wasn't sure how much people would get out of something like this, but for me, networking is just all about feeling intentional and feeling like I've got control over something. And I have a lot of to-do lists in my job, so this is a nice distraction for me, and that's also been helpful. So it's cool to see everyone talk about, you don't need to conquer your fear. Like those quotes and those inspirational things, I write them down and have them on my desk. So do that, write that down today. Don't forget to network, or your network is your net worth. Like write those things somewhere on your that you'll see them. So thank you all for writing your thoughts too. I think it's awesome to see there's a lot of inspiration out there.
Okay. This has been a great discussion. I also love the way that people were communicating in the chat. It does make these things special. But we are running out of time. So I'm going to thank you for sharing this wonderful information, these wonderful insights and your energy. I know I am going to be applying some of these things because I thought they were really important advice. And thanks to everyone for being here. And let us thank you also to our NextGen Partner Alliance for helping put on today's summit. Um, I do have a few quick reminders before we log off the session. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation to get your credit. Again, the resources tab at the bottom will have that, or the resource room in the exhibit hall. And if you haven't already, do head over to the exhibit hall and check out the amazing booths. They're filled with additional information and resources for you. Um, Up next, our lunch keynotes will start at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, so in about 15, 16 minutes. Grab a bite or a beverage and be sure to join us. You can access those sessions in the Sessions tab in the main environment. So thank you all again for being here, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you.
Bye.